So the Sunset is one of the last few remaining neighborhoods that are really working class. And the Sunset was one of the first places where a lot of Chinese immigrants or Chinese families were able to move. And right now, I think this is some of the last places where people can get a single family home. The reason why billionaires care about this district so much is it's another seat for them, another person that can vote along their line. And for me, it's just like, it didn't matter where people stood on the political spectrum. When it comes to affordability, transit, public safety, healthcare, education, like quality of life things, it affects everyone, no matter where you are on that.
You're a target of a massive $1 million smear campaign where they published multiple hit pieces and these really bad faith racist campaigns.
I think I'm just like, wow, I'm worth more than $1.5 million. Or I'm just such a major threat. And I'm like, I'm not intimidating. I'm only 4'11".
Welcome, friends, family, and fighters of all ages. This is round 7 of Seasoned Fighters, a show where we step into the ring with champions of social change so we can learn the art of fighting back. And in the blue corner, we have a born and raised San Franciscan who's been in politics and community for the last 20 years. And she's most recently ran for office against someone who had more than $1.5 million behind them. She's currently organizing with local SF communities, running for the Working Families Party, and teaching Pilates. Please welcome our next fighter, Natalie Gee. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
So I'm Natalie Gee, and yeah, thank you so much for the great intro too.
Awesome. Natalie, I'm so happy that you're here to help us really understand SF politics, smear campaigns, and community organizing. But before we dive in, I want to set the stage so our audience can better understand your origin story, because not a lot of people get into politics, and you need certain qualities or a level of confidence to be able to put yourself out there and not only campaign for votes, but to be a representative for your community. So looking back at your own life, what were some of those key moments that pushed you into a life of politics and public service?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Rainer. So it started way back when I was a kid. And my mom's an immigrant mom. And my dad was raised here at a really young age, but also an immigrant. And so my mom was always really interested in what was happening in the community around her. And so she started taking me to neighborhood community meetings. I forget how old I was, but she was like, you need to translate to me what was happening. So with like the knowledge that I knew at the time of like the words and whatnot, I tried my best to tell her like what was happening and whatnot. And these were situations that just kind of kept happening. Like we would go to community meetings in the evening. I would translate to her so she can get plugged in. She would then also call up her other friends who don't speak English to tell them like what was happening in the neighborhood. One major campaign I think I remember was like she took me out to go canvassing with her. Yeah. But not actually speak to people. So I think it was more of a lit drop. And this was like probably back in 1994. So like really, really long time ago. And I think like for me, it was just like just being exposed to those spaces for at such a young age. I'm like, yeah, I want to help the community. I want to continue to do that. My mom also made me go to Chinese school every Saturday. And so I was able to pick up the language. I can read, write, speak in Cantonese. I can also speak in Mandarin when I took it in high school. And also I watched way too much like Taiwanese dramas, like and Taiwanese pop like during high school. So I kind of picked up the language as well. And so just having those skills, I was like, oh, like I can actually do this and like help my community understand even more. My mom wanted me to be a doctor or pharmacist. And I tried. I went into college, I went to SF State, and I took biochem. The first semester, I absolutely hated it. Like I had to copy my friend's homework. Like that was how bad it was. And I was just like, I was failing out the classes. I'm like, nope, this is not the pathway I want. And so of course, like, being the only child, I also of an immigrant mom, I also want to, people please a little bit and like, stay in the medical field. So I ended up taking health education, which was more about like social sciences and also like helping communities. And it was like very much aligned with the work that I was doing. Towards the end of high school, I started joining a youth program. with the Chinese Progressive Association in San Francisco, and they've been around since 1972. They were the ones who were helping organize on the I Hotel, if you know about the I Hotel. Yeah. So pretty OG organizing story. And then so I got plugged in as just like a volunteer, learning about what was happening in Chinatown too, and just also tying it into my own community. I grew up in the Portola area in San Francisco, which is the southeast corner side of the city. A lot of immigrants out there, a lot of Chinese immigrants, a lot of working class folks as well. And so through Chinese Progressive Association, through their Common Roots program, I was able to work with Latino youth as well. And so we were building racial solidarity between two communities over a summer program. Loved the program, stayed into it, eventually became a youth organizer for it, and then eventually got hired on by CPA to run the youth program. And out on a part-time basis because I was still finishing up school at the same time while doing this. But I was able to help them co-found another youth program called Youth Mojo, Youth Movement of Justice Organizing. And it was because the program that I originally was in was only limited to 8 young people every year. So the spaces were really low. And so I wanted to expand it bigger so that most high schoolers can join, regardless of their background. I think the first year we might have had like 40 youth or so, more or less, but it kept getting expanded even more every summer. I did get really burned out from nonprofit work because eventually I was still full time after I finished school. And nonprofit doesn't pay that well, right? And so at the same time, I was like side hustling, and me and one of my friends, we do photography. So I was like was the second shooter in wedding photography. I was doing a lot of that. I was like, oh, I want to do something different in the arts and whatnot. And so I basically quit my job because I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm gonna go do photography and do my hobby. um, but then I got pulled back into politics. And so someone I met along the way, because CPA, they also work on workers' rights issues, and they work with like other organizations in San Francisco on workers' rights. They work on tenants issues as well, environmental justice issues, as well as just getting people to vote. And so someone that I had met in that space, Hillary Ronan, she's like, I'm running for supervisor, which is like city council. And I need someone to be my Chinese organizer to talk with the Chinese community and organize the Chinese community. And I thought about it, I was like, oh man, this is like, I wanted to get out of this like space because I was so burned out, but like I got pulled back in. So I was like, all right, you know what, let's do it. I was her Chinese organizer, ran a really successful campaign, ended up being her field director as well and just doing all the field work. And we won. I also met my husband along the way in this campaign too, which was nice. We are now married. We've been together for almost 10 years now. Um, and so that pulled me back into the political space where that's where I got pulled into City Hall as her aide for a little bit, and then went off of her office, yeah, went out for office and ran Supervisor Shaman Walton's campaign, who I still work for right now. I've been his longtime chief of staff at City Hall for the last 8 years, and recently stepped back as just a legislative aide by title only, just because I was running my own campaign. And so that is the condensed version of my origin story.
Wow. I mean, I love it. Uh, Interesting. You had mentioned, you know, being in the sunset. I went to SF State as well, so I definitely have a soft spot for that
Yeah,
side of the city. I mean, I think
yeah,
for a lot of people from outsiders looking in, who see SF as just like this homogenous sort of thing, they really miss some of the details of the rich cultural neighborhood diversity.
yeah.
And it truly has grown to be my favorite neighborhood in the city.
It's
But
so nice.
it really is. It really is. But for folks who are listening at home, can you
Yeah,
share what do you think makes the sunset so special? Like why and
yeah.
then also why are there so many outside forces, billionaires, politicians who are trying to influence that part of the city?
Yeah, so the sunset is on the western side of San Francisco. For those who don't know about it, it's south of Golden Gate Park, and it goes all the way down to where Lake Merced is, more or less. And this is, we don't really have summers here. like an actual summer. Like right now, it's super foggy. It's been overcast and foggy the whole month, and it's kind of cold right now too. We don't actually get a summer until maybe late August, September, October. But me and my husband, we moved out here during the pandemic in January of 2021, and because a lot of folks moved out at the time, rents like dropped in San Francisco, and so we found a one bedroom together, rent controlled. And so we were here. I didn't have any plans running at the time too. It was just like, oh great, we get to finally have our own space. I get to move out of my mom's house. He gets to move out of his mom's house. So it's like, life's together. And so the Sunset is one of the last few remaining neighborhoods that are really working class. But there's also a lot of single family homes in San Francisco. It's a little bit like the suburban part of San Francisco, but also not really because you're close enough to the city to do a lot of different things. And the Sunset was one of the first places where a lot of Chinese immigrants or Chinese families were able to move after the whole redlining thing. So back in SF, when there was redlining, Chinese folks were only limited to like Chinatown area or just the adjacent area with it. And once that was lifted, a lot of Chinese families moved westward towards the Richmond district, which is above Golden Gate Park, and also to the Sunset district. And right now, I think this is some of the last places where people can get a single family home. But even the prices are like really expensive. It's like the house next to us, maybe this was maybe 2022, it got sold for 2.5 million. It's insane. But like you can't find a single family home under a million now. And it used to be one of the last more affordable places. And this is happening all over San Francisco too. Like even the southeast part, Baby Hunters Point, like housing prices are just going so much. It's a lot. I think you said why the billionaires care about this place. Um, there's a board of supervisors, which is kind of like our city council in San Francisco. San Francisco is a chartered city and county. We are the only chartered city and county throughout California. There's a total of 58 counties. And what that means is that we operate, we have our police department, but we also have a sheriff's department. So we have two different law enforcement agencies. We run our own airport. We have our own hospital system. And we also have our own court system. So we have a lot of these different things as a county. The Board of Supervisors functions as a city council. And so there's 11 seats. We have a strong mayor system, executive branch makes a lot of the decisions. And then you have a board that's the legislative branch. And so if a certain group of people have control of the Board of Supervisors, they can drive the direction of where San Francisco goes. And so for the Sunset District, last year there was a recall that happened, and actually the last few years, and then I'm sure you talked to Allison on this too, there was recalls happening in San Francisco. But last year there was a recall that happened because the previous supervisor proposed a ballot measure to shut down the Great Highway, turn it into Sunset Dunes Park, and then a lot of folks felt like they were not included in that process, so they recalled him, and that opened up the seat, or that opened up the opportunity for the mayor to appoint someone. And I was one of the, well, that was a huge mess too. So the mayoral appointment process, he appointed someone with initially with like zero political experience. She was 29, young woman, right? Grew up in the district. Turns out she lasted less than a week. And that was because, yeah, that was because she literally had skeletons in her closet. She had owned a pet store, and there was like some financial issues, tax frauds, things like that. The mayor's office did not do a good enough vetting process on it. And it was reporters and journalists who went in and dug up the information on this too. And so that was crazy. She resigned within a week, and the mayor was like, I fucked up. Let's try this again. And so he was like, let's do a community process. And at the time, I had announced my run for supervisor. I announced it, I think, October 22nd, which is my birthday of last year. And so I was like, you know what, let me just announce it before he appoints anyone. And so me and my friends were like, you should put out a notice on social media saying that you're interested in the appointment. And I was like, it's kind of a long shot though, but they're like, just try it, right? So I did. I posted a message on I would welcome the opportunity to begin serving for the district before. And to my surprise, I got the opportunity to go through that appointment process, which is almost like a rush week sort of thing. We had to do different things, show up at different community events, speak, and whatever. Ultimately, I didn't get the appointment process, and the mayor appointed the current supervisor. And so I was already in the running, so now I'm like running against him. And so the reason why billionaires care about this district so much is it's another seat for them. It's another person that can vote along their lines. I am someone who does not vote along their lines. I am someone who fights for working people, and that is a huge threat to them, which is also why they spent 1.5 million in this. Part of it was also attacking me on different things too. And it's wild. I think that is the most expensive district election in San Francisco, and it was a special election because yes, we had to run in June, but the seat is up again for November. The June one was to finish the term the last supervisor left because of the recall, and his term was going to end January 7th of next year. And so November is an all new 4 year term. But after this first one, I was like, you know what? I am, to protect my own sanity and my friends and my family and things like that, I made the hard decision of like, I'm not going to run for November.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really want to dive into some of the details of the campaign, but I want to point
Yeah.
out one of the stories that I really love about uh, your uh, your background in politics was that story that you had mentioned about translating for your mom, and when you accompany her to these events. And what I wanted to know is, after doing that type of work, what do you think are just some of the issues that go unchecked when there are no translators in the room and the needs of the community get lost in translation?
Yeah, I think language access has just been a really important issue for me, not just my own personal experience, but also working with residents who may not speak English as their first language. And a lot of times, like, the barrier to government is already hard enough for people. Most government services are in English, and people may not know that in San Francisco they have access to different language translation or interpretation, but in other different areas of the United States, we don't have that. And so, like, how do you even navigate as someone who's from an immigrant background too? It's just like, if you don't know English, how are you going to navigate? So you're going to rely on your kids to do that too, right? And your kids only know so much on like certain terms. Even I also remember, like, I used to translate for my mom at medical appointments before they had translation at Kaiser, and I'm like, how do I describe this? I do not have the medical background or the vocabulary to describe it. So I end up describing like the symptoms, right? Like, this is what it's supposed to do, or this is what it's supposed to alleviate if it's medication. So, that's what's were things that are lost in translation. And I think that, people, for folks here, they should have access to information in their language. In SF, I was able to expand the language access policy through my current office, Supervisor Shaman Welton. And so we strengthened it more so that more public facing office departments are more like prioritizing language access for folks too. And also, we expanded the required language to include Vietnamese because we do have a sizable Vietnamese population in San Francisco. So right now, the as of June 1st of this year, the official languages are English, Chinese, Spanish, Filipino, and Vietnamese.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Um, Now, I want to go ahead and fast forward a bit
Yeah.
and talk about more modern politics, and especially the recent election, because as we were saying earlier, you're a target of a massive $1 million smear campaign where they published multiple hit pieces and these really bad faith racist campaigns.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, there's so much, we don't have to go through all that, but can you just like walk us through just this timeline of some of the stuff that they had been saying and targeting you for?
Yeah. It's crazy. I think I'm just like, wow, I'm worth more than $1.5 million. Or I'm just such a major threat. And I'm like, I'm not intimidating. I'm only 4'11. But I think so. It started with like polls. I think I didn't have much of a name recognition initially when this race began. Like people who knew me in politics knew who I was, but the district like overall didn't really truly know who I was initially. And then I started gaining momentum because like when you're running, you gain a lot of press coverage. You're in community, you meet people, you chat with people, and people start learning about you too. And I think I was such a threat to these big billionaires because like I ran on the platform of helping working people. And for me, it's just like it didn't matter where people stood on the political spectrum when it comes to affordability, transit, public safety, healthcare, education, like quality of life things, it affects everyone no matter where you are on that. And so my goal was to really focus on those core issues. And so I think the first attack ad that they did on me was like they pulled out a questionnaire that I did in 2024. So in 2024, I ran for the local Democratic Party. It's a unpaid position, and you basically kind of steer the direction of the Democratic Party. I did not win because the same billionaires poured in a lot of money supporting an opposing slate at the time, but I did pretty well, like considering everything. Was not on the DCCC though. And so one of the questionnaires for I think the Harvey Milk Club had asked like, do you support tasers? And or do you support like qualified immunity, all that different things too. So I answered like very truthfully, which was a very progressive stance. And I had a very nuanced stance on tasers, saying that I prefer our law enforcement to use tasers before they use guns, a lethal weapon, right? Because logically that's also what the DOJ recommended to SFPD to do too, because 10 years ago, there was a lot of officer shooting cases in San Francisco, which kind of triggered the whole movement. Like there was the Frisco Five who went on a hunger strike. This is back in 2016. And so like I'm using some of these recommendations that the DOJ has given to SFPD to do that too. And so they twist it in a way where they're like, oh, well, she's anti-gun. And I'm just like, some of my friends were like, was like, you just post pictures of you shooting a gun at a range. Because I've shot guns at range before, like, right? But I'm just like, no, that's not really my image, whatever, right? And so they kept running with that lies. And they also pulled out my donation to Chesa Bodine, our former DA that got recalled. And he got recalled in 2022. I had donated maybe at most $200 to him, right? Because a lot of my friends worked on his campaign, right? I knew who he was, and like sometimes I just like support people. And so they would send out mailers to every single household in District 4, the Sunset District, attacking me on this. The first fire was basically using a screenshot of me when, because I make my own content on Instagram as well. And so they screenshot a picture of me where I'm like half blinking and then like said like, oh, she's like, you know, she's doesn't support public safety and all this other lies. And so they ran that maybe about 4 or 5 times in different versions. They started using images from my campaign. And I like to dress cute because I feel like, you know, this is a whole other topic about politics and fashion too. Cute but professional. And so they would use these pictures of me like looking really cute and then saying that I'm anti public safety. It's just so weird. And so they kept sending that out to everyone too. I think towards the end, because someone behind Sunset Dunes, which is after the closure of the Great Highway, ended coming out to endorse me, even though I didn't ask for his endorsement, but they weaponized that and they're like, well, Natalie is friends with Lucas Lux. And so she is not for reopening Great Highway and all these bunch of lies at the time and just like spreading it out to people too. And it was really insane. And I think like for me was just like as the only woman running too, it none of my opponents except for maybe one, Jeremy Greco, like stood up and said anything about it too. And so definitely not Alan Wong, who's the current supervisor. None of them said anything about it too. And it's just like it was overboard on the way that they were attacking me. Like I've never seen so much attacks in San Francisco to one person. And it was just like, for me, it was also kind of a badge of honor a little bit because I'm like, oh, I'm such a threat to them that they had to spend so much money on me. So I had started collecting all the attack ads and I would tell my supporters too, like, if you get an attack ad, don't recycle it. I want to keep it. And so my response to a lot of these was I was making content to counter it. So there was one where I like had a bunch of attack ads where I just like threw it up and just like, you know, like a runway and just walk through it on it, right? Like, why are you guys so obsessed with me? Or I would like make other like fun attack counters on Instagram just to counter all these things. And I think my way of like going through all this was like, I can only really laugh about it and joke about it because like, what am I supposed to do with all these like negative attacks on me besides like countering them?
I mean,
Yeah,
I can't I can't even imagine because I mean even when you know someone says a bad comment about you, sometimes a
yeah,
bad one will stick to you. But it's like, I mean, these are mailers being sent out to your neighborhood, and
yeah.
I mean, I just commend you for having just the
Oh, I don't think I can see this.
what
I don't
was
want to
that?
turn my background, but so they had one attack guy with a street sign
Uh huh.
saying like in Natalie Gee's sunset, crime is like all over the place. And so I was like, let's make a street sign out. And so this is what I do. Like I turn it into a joke instead of like, oh, they gave us this idea of making a street sign, so let's do that for the campaign. And now I have street signs.
I love that. And I love that response because I mean, um, that is how you have to respond to bullies. You know, you
Yeah,
can't counter them. You have to be able to. You know, I think how you responded is actually the best way, which is to laugh at it and to say that it's pathetic and to be
it
able
is.
to continue the conversation on your own terms and be like, you know, that is its own thing. I don't have to address that racist thing. It just is it is inappropriate and
Yeah,
but we have shit to do and we have communities to
yeah.
serve and that isn't doing anything.
A
Um,
100%. And I can point to examples in the past campaigns too. So there was a campaign, I think maybe in 2020 in District 7,
mhm.
adjacent district, where the previous supervisor for this one, we got redistricted, long story, was running against someone of Vietnamese descent. And there was attack mailers basically tying, I think, the Vietnamese candidate to like communism and things like that too, like very racist. And like as someone's opponent, the opponent basically called it out too, right? And so that was kind of refreshing. It's just like even though that attack ad helped him, in supposedly, right? Like he still called out this thing. It was ran by independent expenditures. So independent expenditures are basically separate campaigns that are not associated with the main campaign. So this is where a lot of the billionaires pour in their money to try to support a candidate because they can try to steer a direction a certain way. As candidates, when we run for office, there's a certain limit. Like we can only accept $500 per person, which even then is like a lot for a lot of my friends, right? Like I'm sure my friends got annoyed with me calling them like every month, like, hey, can you donate another 100, please? Right? And so, but in SF we also have public financing. So if you're a San Francisco resident, you're matching funds for every dollar you donate. The city gives the campaign another $6 if they can verify you. So that is supposed to help you leverage the big money that is coming in. But I think the big money that is coming in is insane.
Wow.
Like we
So
had a MAGA billionaire donate 250K in one of the IEs to attack me and support the opponent. And it's like, why would a MAGA billionaire want to like deal with local politics in SF?
I mean, I, I'm sure that there's like layers of things that you've already sort of mentally processed and you're done with, and some things
Yeah.
that still stick. Now that the campaign's over and you've had that time to reflect about this wild experience, um, you know, how do you feel about the whole thing? And is there anything that you change about the campaign that you ran? And then ultimately, like, do you have any advice for people who are also similarly running working class campaigns who are then, you know, attacked by this multi-million dollar smear campaign?
Yeah, I think like we ran a top-notch campaign. And I've been doing campaigns or political stuff for the last like 10 plus years. Our field was on point. We knocked on, I forget the amount of doors, but we knocked on the entire district, I think 4 or 5 times total, right? Like 40,000 doors, like every single door. Not everyone answered, right? Which is fine. I think those were the votes that we were unable to get because they got a lot of the mailers coming into them. And so, we had a pretty elite team. Like everyone who was working on my campaign were like friends who's done politics in some sort. My campaign consultant, we ran against each other in a different campaign where I was a campaign manager and he was the field director in 2018, but we're friends. And like my campaign manager, he was my intern from Supervisor Shaman Alton's office 7 years ago. My first batch of summer interns, he was part of it. And he later on went on to do like things at Sacramento, at the state capitol, came back. I was like, I need you on my team. So that was like the folks that I pulled together too. And so we ran like a very positive campaign, very like, a lot of canvassers out there helping us door knock, talk to people and whatnot too. I think what we underestimated was the amount of money being poured in, but also the mayor putting his entire weight on this race. Um, the mayor had appointed this appointee, and rather than let him try to shine on his own or whatever, everything that he did was backed by the mayor. So a lot of the mayors that came out in support of the opponent had the mayor's picture on it. Even in Chinese newspapers and commercials, it was always the two of them together. So in actuality, I wasn't running against Alan Wong. I was running against the mayor, who has a huge popularity level here in San Francisco right now. And so I think I wouldn't change anything. I think like it was a great experience for me too, because now I feel like I'm the only person in San Francisco who can say I've worked on every position on a campaign, from being a volunteer to field director, fundraising, campaign manager to the actual candidate. So I think that just brings in a lot more insight too. And I think for future folks of people doing working class campaigns, like there is hope out there, right? I see what's happening across the United States. I see what happened in New York with Mom Downey, right? That gives me hope that like this is possible. But I think in San Francisco, we just have to understand that there's a lot of tech oligarchs out here. And how we can counter that is to organize people on the ground level. It's to get people to care about what is happening too. I know there's a lot of like political apathy around politics because when people are worried about their next paycheck or making rent, right? Or even having food on their table, they're not going to care about politics. And it's up to for folks that are able to, that we can try to organize folks and like educate folks and bring people in too. Make the tent bigger. I think like there's also internal like camp fights, right? Like progressive folks in San Francisco, there's a divide, right? You may be in someone else's camp or whatever, but it's important to like bring everyone together, because ultimately we're not fighting against each other. We're fighting against these tech oligarchs who's trying to take over our city.
Wow. I mean, on the note of tech oligarchs, if we zoom out and we look at the long-term effects, what do you think happens to places like the Sunset or San Francisco or even larger the country as more
Mm-hmm.
and more of these elections, local elections, uh, get bought out by billionaire-backed campaigns?
Yeah, it's deregulation of our system. I think in the name of streamlining, that's what they're gonna do. It's also making sure regular day people have a harder time to participate in city government. San Francisco, we have a lot of opportunities for people to participate, whether it's giving public comments, sending in an email, or different processes where people can plug in if something's happening in your neighborhood and you're against it. And that is all part of what democracy is supposed to look like. You are supposed to have a say on how this happens. But in November, because of our current makeup with the board, whatever their priorities are, they are trying to change the charter. The charter is basically our constitution for San Francisco, and they have introduced charter reform measures. One of these measures is to change the way or how many signatures is required to place a citizens ballot initiative on the ballot. Right now, it's about a little bit over 10,000 signatures, which is about 2% of the voting population, I think. And even getting to 10,000 signatures is hard enough for people because, again, there's that voter apathy where people don't care. Um, but they're trying to change it to 40,000. And so 40,000 signatures, which would basically mean that unless you have $500,000 to spend on signature gatherers, you're not going to place anything on the ballot. They're also trying to change the amount of signatures to place a ballot on the board of supervisors. Right now, we only need 4 supervisors to place an initiative on the ballot in front of the voters. They're trying to change it to 6. Getting the board of supervisors to agree all the time is already hard, and making it into 6, like if you want to put in ballot measures who that are, for the people that are trying to maybe tax companies or do regulations on big businesses and stuff, it'll be a lot harder, especially if you have supervisors who are aligned with their interests. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot.
It definitely is a lot, but
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you're breaking all of this down because a lot of folks don't understand how these things are working. Obviously, in San Francisco, things are uniquely laid out.
Mhm.
As somebody who's born and raised in San Francisco, you've seen the city change dramatically over the years. You've experienced the way that tech oligarchs have changed San Francisco, both in big ways and small ways. When you look at these changes, what communities, what people have been pushed out of the city,
Yeah.
and what neighborhoods have been hit the hardest?
Definitely people of color. I think, we can point out to the Mission District. There was a lot of Latino folks living out there, working class folks, low income folks. They are the first to get pushed out. When the first .com boom happened in San Francisco in like the late 1990s, 2000s, right? It pushed out so many working class folks. And we see that also happening throughout the rest of San Francisco. Bayview is getting gentrified. Hunters Point getting gentrified. Chinatown, even Chinatown adjacent, getting gentrified. This gentrification is happening like everywhere. Um, yes, we do need more housing in San Francisco, but the housing that is currently being built is market rate. And there's this belief by some of the groups out here saying that, like, if you build more market rate housing, it'll level up everything. They've said that for the last like 15, 20 years, right? It's only made the housing worse. Like, yes, we need more housing that is appropriate for all incomes, but also there's a current AI boom in San Francisco. Recently, like we've learned that a 1 bedroom in San Francisco is $4,500. That is insane, right? And like you have politicians who are against rent control, and rent control is the only stabilizer that we have right now, right? And it's just like there's so much happening that is pushing um, people who may not have a high income out, but not even just like low income folks, like middle income folks too. Like a lot of the friends that I grew up with, I'm one of the few folks among my friend group that lives in San Francisco. A lot of my friends either moved down into the Peninsula, Pacifica, to East Bay, to Sacramento, further away from San Francisco because it is so expensive to live here. And I'm really lucky because me and my husband found a 1 bedroom apartment that's under rent control. And during a time when a lot of people moved out because people were working from home, and so they got to move out to different places. So we were just in that time where the rent dipped a little bit, but it's only been skyrocketing since. And our elected leaders are not doing anything about it right now, right? New York was able to do a rent freeze. Here, there's no talks of a rent freeze. Here, we're reappropriating money that was supposed to be for affordable housing, and we're trying to give tax breaks to developers. It doesn't make sense. Where, um, whereas like we should use that money for actual affordable housing, which is what voters had intended to. I'm talking about Prop I here that happened like a few years ago, and so it's just like some of the things here is just like it's not helpful for working people. It's not trying to help working class folks stay here, and we know that like we need people of all incomes in San Francisco, not just high incomes, right? The people who are our janitors, our bus drivers, our restaurant workers, right? The low wage workers, they can't be commuting all the way from Sacramento or Antioch or whatever, right? They also deserve to live in San Francisco and work in San Francisco to make our city function.
Now, one of the things that you had mentioned earlier about one of the many ways that you show up for your community is that you work with the supervisor in the supervisor's office, Supervisor Walton, which I think is awesome because together you represent a lot of folks and you also represent a lot of Black and Asian communities in San Francisco. So, if we're speaking specifically about your work in political organizing, community development, How does Black and Asian solidarity look like behind the scenes?
Yes, it's definitely building a lot of community relations. We had some few incidents in the early 2010s that divided the Black and Asian community, and we had some of those incidents happen too. I'm talking about violence happening to Asian folks, and for us, on our first day in office, we received a phone call that a elderly Chinese grandma was brutally attacked. Um, and it was by someone who was black. And me and Supervisor Walton the next day at like he was swearing in, and that's where I got the phone call on it. The next day we visited her at the hospital, and we work with the family, we and whatnot too, and we work with the different community groups in the community as well. But we realized that we needed to do more or create more opportunities where people can get to know each other. If residents know one another, right, get to hang out in the same spaces, get to do that community work, the more community building there is, the more our community heals, the more that we can bring together too. And I will also want to say, like, Asian folks, Chinese folks, right? We wouldn't be here in the US without some of the things Black folks have done in history for us, right? Civil rights movement, making sure like there's so much history involved where there's a lot of Black and Asian solidarity already in history that is not being taught in schools, right? That is not being, people don't know about this too, right? Like the reason why we can vote, the reason why the whole immigration, things like that, right? The reason why our schools are not segregated, it's because of the work of Black people. And a lot of times the system will try to divide us and pit us against each other because if the oppressors pit us against each other, no one's looking at the oppressors. We're just attacking each other. And I think, like, you know, we're fortunate enough in San Francisco that there is diversity, but we also know that the Black population in San Francisco has been dwindling for the last like 40 years. I think we're under like 5% so far. And it's like there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. But for us in our office, we started the first Black History Month and Lunar New Year celebration in Visitation Valley. And that's one of the neighborhoods in District 10 in the Southeast side that has a lot of Black folks and Asian folks too. And again, it was trying to like bridge the cultures together. Like Lunar New Year, Black History Month usually falls around the same time too. And so like let's celebrate together, right? Let's try each other's food. Let's see each other's different cultural performances and things like that too. And let's like build that relationship and build that healing. Um, and so it's still a space that like we still have to navigate and still have to do work with, and something that I still want to continue to do even if I'm not working for Supervisor Walton in the future because he's terming out at the end of this year. But in my own life, I also do a lot of solidarity work and organizing in the labor side too. I'm really active in my union at a PTE Local 21, and like we also try to build that relationship with like different unions and bring people together. Like ultimately, it is about bringing people together because we have a lot more commonalities than we have differences.
Wow. I love that so much because that really is the ideal like 3D approach to how you bring these communities together, whether it is through small cultural exchanges or having more in-depth opportunities to have like a more serious dialogue. I think all of those things are important, and they all play that important role. Wow, Natalie, I'm so glad that we've had this chance to talk.
Yeah.
I probably could ask you like 20 more questions, but my last question for you today is all about fun, actually.
Yes.
Because I love the way that you include fun community activities in your work because it just means that you don't just care about the people that you serve from a political standpoint, but you also genuinely seem to want to connect and hang out with these people, and like you see them as
Yes.
your neighbors and your friends.
Yes.
Can you tell us like the importance of whimsy, of fun when it comes to community organizing? And is there a science behind the art of having fun?
Yeah, so we are in some crazy dire times right now, both locally and especially nationally. And I think that, we are on the verge of getting closer to fascism every day. And I think bringing in whimsy and joy in itself is very powerful, right? Like fascism doesn't want you to have joy. It wants you to follow along. It wants you to, not worry about what's happening, right? And distract you. But joy is like very revolutionary. When I ran the campaign or when I ran for office, it was bringing in a lot of that fun too. And that's kind of like who I am too. But like we had game nights every Friday night where we invited community. We opened up our office so that people can just hang out with us, talk to me, ask me questions, things like that too. Before I was running, I was already organizing. Well, probably like 9 years ago, I was doing a lot of Pokemon Go organizing, and like meeting a lot of folks in community, organizing raids and whatnot too. I don't do as much organizing there now, but I still participate in the events. And so like this whole past week, I've been going out to do Pokemon Go every night at 6 o'clock at Sunset Dunes. And it's been really fun because it brings people together. And it's like you see kids as young as like 4 and 5 to like elders who are like 60, or 80, or maybe close to 80, 70 something, right? Playing Pokemon is just one way to bring together. I'm also a huge Giants fan. And so me and my friends, we started a fan club for Jung Hoo Lee, one of the Giants players last year. And it was again, like all of my friends were political background. We did campaigns, we did organizing, we're involved with politics somehow, but we were like, we need something that brings joy to people that can really, help people gather in dark times. And so that was our idea of bringing in the fan club on that too. And so, I just, it's also like a low barrier for people to participate. And like, let's have fun, let's enjoy each other's company, and then get to know each other more. And I think sometimes it's just like, once you get to know me, you're like, oh, you're also involved with a lot of politics. I was like, yeah, yeah. And I was also bringing in this to like my Pilates teaching too. I teach Pilates 2 hours a week. And when I was running for office, at the end of my like teaching, I would be like, hey, by the way, I'm running for supervisor. And people are like, whoa, how are you doing all this? I'm like, well, Pilates is kind of like my self-care for myself too. And just my way of having fun for myself in the midst of a very stressful time. And I like helping make people stronger too, but also like, there's this whole side of me too that I don't want to like hide from people. Like I'm also very much involved in politics. So if you want to ask me about that, we can ask about that too. And it helps like kind of open up that conversation too. Yeah.
Well, Natalie, I greatly, greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat. You've given us so much to think about, and I appreciate you stopping by Seasoned Fighters. But before we head out, can you please tell the folks watching at home, what are you working on these days, and where can we find and support you?
Yeah, for sure. So I really love making content during my supervisor run, and I'm still continuing making content. I actually restarted this past week and just talking about local San Francisco issues. You can follow me on Instagram. It's at natalieg.sf. And then I'm also running for Working Families Party representation or representative in San Francisco. And that Working Families Party is national, but we have a California chapter, and then each area kind of has their own representation. So I'm running for that because I want to bring the work that I was doing running for office into a more larger scale and actually do more organizing. I am still working in Supervisor Walton's office for the next 5 months now, I guess, last 5 months. So I'll figure out what I'm going to do, but I'm definitely be adjacent to politics, doing more organizing here and there. Still going to be teaching Pilates. I think like when I lost the election, it was like, yeah, I lost, but I won in different ways too. I won like, yeah, I think life has better plans for me, and I'm excited to like share more about it as we go on.
All right, everybody, that is the final bell. Thanks for being in our corner. And don't forget to follow Natalie Gee all over social media to keep up with SF politics. And we will see you for another round.
Thank you
Peace.
so much, Rainer. Bye.